What's up YouTube, Ace Trainer Luke here, and today we're going to be trying something new for this channel. We're going to be making a tier list for Pokemon VGC Regulation J. Now, there haven't been a ton of tier lists made for this, and I think that's because the official competitive format is moving back to Regulation H. However, Battle Stadium, which is played in-game, is going to be played out on Regulation J, and that starts tomorrow. If you don't know, Regulation J is simply an expansion on Regulation I, which allowed 2 restricted Pokemon per team. Regulation J will be adding the mythical Pokemon that are available in Scarlet and Violet to the list of available restricteds. So, for example, instead of Lunala Miraidon, your team could be Lunala Darkrai if you wanted it to be. And we're starting off with the original mythical Pokemon, Mew. This one makes me sad because I do really like Mew, but it's just a worse version of Calyrex Shadow Rider in every way. If we look at it across the board, it's slower, it has less special attack, it doesn't have the Ghost Stab, and it also probably loses 1v1s against Calyrex Shadow Rider. You have to keep in mind that when we're grading these Pokemon, they're taking up a restricted slot, so we're gonna expect a lot of value out of them. And if you're not getting that value, you're better off just generally using something else. If you do want to try to make this work, maybe Mew's your favorite Pokemon or something, or maybe you're trying to make a team for content, there are, I think, a couple things you could try. I think your best bet is something like Trick Room, combination with Transform. You set up Trick Room to get speed control, and then you try to transform into an opponent's restricted Pokemon, and then you can, in theory, have like 3 restricted Pokemon. I think this is your best bet. You can maybe run like Facade Toxic Orb to try to take advantage of Synchronize, but that's going to be so inconsistent. You want to run Terra Normal, I think, to get around Calyrex Shadow Rider. So this is unfortunate because if it got something like Extreme Speed, you could maybe have a case here. You get rid of Facade and then you have Terra Normal Extreme Speed. That would be okay, and you poison something to weaken them. I could see a vision, but doesn't even get Psycho Boost or anything. I think this would be something they could have tried to make it better. It's going to be tough to use. All that being said, where are we going to put this? I think I got to go D tier. Sucks a little bit, but yeah. Next up is Jirachi. Similar issues to Mew. Weak to Calyrex Shadow Rider. Also base 100 across the board, which is good but not great in any specific area. Your niche is more clearly defined. I think you always run Iron Head on this thing, and I think there are probably a pretty simple EV spread, like something like this. Oops. Is what you're gonna want. Probably Jolly. You can make a case for Adamant. 2 items, I think either Razor Fang for the additional flinch chance, and I think with Serene Grace, Razor Fang, and Iron Head, this is something like a 80% chance to flinch, or Choice Scarf. And the reason I say Choice Scarf is the niche here is an endgame win condition of just flinching your opponent to death, and that only works if you can get speed control. So if you're confident you'll be faster in endgames, then you go Razor Fang, and if you're not, you go Choice Scarf. I think Terra Steel is actually appropriate. You're going to want to be able to Terra out of the weakness to Calyrex Shadow Rider, and I think the additional damage that you would pick up would be value. As far as grading this, what I will do is I will put it in C tier for now because I think you have a more clearly defined niche than Mew, and it's going to be a little bit more consistent. I still just don't think it's good though. Okay, Deoxys. So, no reason to use base form Deoxys. I will say that right off the bat. Deoxys, this is Deoxys attack, right? I think this is going to be bad, but I will pull up its stat spread just to explain why. This is very similar to Mew. The only difference is actually speed ties with Calyrex Shadow Rider, but speed tie is not good enough when you're trying to win consistently. It hits hard, that's cool, but it's super frail. Doesn't have a lot else going for it. So because of that, it also goes here. I think it's, I guess, a little better than Mew because it at least speed ties, but much the same issues. Deoxys defense, similar to Deoxys attack. I will pull it up just to explain why. What you really want to do is you want to stall. Something like this. but this is, with this typing, is going to be really hard to pull off. I think if you went like full-on commitment to stall and you terrored this every time and you gave it protect and then maybe like Nightshade for consistent damage, you could win some games. So because of that, I will go ahead and put it with clearly defined niche with Jirachi. I actually think, honestly, it's probably a little better than Jirachi. I wouldn't want to use either of these, but if you made me use one, I would rather use Deoxys Defense than Jirachi. Deoxys Speed is the best one. I'll put that above, can I do that? Yeah, I'll put it above Deoxys Defense. I think it's still a C tier mon, but I'd rather use Deoxys Speed than Deoxys Defense, and the reason why is because you actually outspeed Calyrex Shadow Rider. So if you go max speed, you outspeed, and you could run like Icy Wind to get speed control. You do get Psycho Boost, so you're definitely better than Mew. And this would be okay. You could run a Sash to account for your bulk. You could be Terra Ghost to get around Fake Out. And you would have something here. The reason that this is where it is, though, is because if you want to do this, you could just use Regieleki, which is faster than Deoxys Speed. So I think this would be a little bit better if Regieleki didn't exist, but if you're looking for a Pokemon like this, you should probably be using Regieleki, which is why I'm going to put it here. Okay, next up is Manaphy. And our first Pokemon that is not naturally weak to Calyrex Shadow Rider, much better typing here with a pure water type. Also base 100 across the board. I think using this thing would be similar to Deoxys Defense, where you would want to go really bulky. You could still have a defensive Terra type, but you don't have to rely on it every time. I think you would want to lean into like Acid Armor and Take Heart with like Skull, does it get? Yup. Not bad, not bad. Tail Glow stuff, I should mention this because this is unique, but I think this is going to be too slow. Generally speaking, you also have this kind of gimmicky move called, what is it called? Heart Swap, where you could like set all these stat boost up and then give them to somebody else. But again, similar to Tail Glow, I think this is just going to be too slow. You do have a niche though of not dying. So if we put Deoxys Defense in C tier, we have to probably at least give this C tier. So in terms of grading it, I think it's probably along the same lines of Deoxys Speed. I would rather use Deoxys Speed though, so we'll go right there. All right, next up is, if I had to guess, a Pokemon that people have been waiting for me to talk about, which is Darkrai. So the elephant in the room for Darkrai is Dark Void. It gets this move. It's, I think, the only Pokemon to get it. And what you're generally going to want to do is run a faster Pokemon or a prankster Pokemon and run Gravity. And then Dark Void never misses, and you can put both your Pokemon to sleep. You're kind of frail, so you're going to want to run Sash. I should also mention there's this idea of running Scarf with Prankster Gravity specifically, just to try to put everything to sleep right away. But the problem with the strategy is I think once you get high enough up on the rankings / ladder, people are going to be prepared for it, and it won't win you games outright. It's still not awful because Dark Void is broken. But I don't think you can rely on this, and furthermore, I don't know if it warrants taking up a restricted slot. Let's explore Darkrai outside of Dark Void, and it's just a pretty hard-hitting and pretty fast pure Dark type special attacker. You also have like Sludge Bomb for coverage and Dark Pulse, and as I said, you're running Sash. This might actually not be a bad Stellar Terra Pokemon, but long story short, players are going to be prepared for this, and I don't think it's going to be that good. Where do we rank it, though? I think this is... Honestly, I would rather use Deoxys Speed, but I think this is the second best Pokemon we've seen. This might be a bit of a hot take putting it this low, but you can test it out for yourself, and I don't think you're going to find that much success. So we're going to go C tier for now. All right, next, the Shaman forms. So it is worth considering both of them because they're a little different, and I think they're, I'm gonna say, both viable hypothetically in terms of this tier list. But what I will say is Probably this Shaman form is never worth taking up a restricted slot. I'm not going to call it a bad Pokemon, but yeah, don't use this for a restricted slot unless you're really dedicated to trying to make it work for some reason. And then I don't even really have that much suggestions for you if you're going to try this. Good luck. I'd love to see it. This one is like kind of like Jirachi, where you might have like a win condition with like maybe Air Slash, Flinch, and Razor Fang. You also do get Tailwinds, which I think manual Tailwind from this in this format is going to be pretty tough, but it is a move you would probably run, and I guess an additional consideration. I think this is on par with Jirachi. I'm going to put it ahead of Jirachi. The flinch chance is lower, but I'm going to put it ahead of Jirachi only because I think the typing's better. So we'll go there, but you could easily interchange these. All right, next, I will try not to tilt a little bit when explaining this Pokemon. We have Arceus, and we're going to go straight to the S tier. I know it's very juxtaposed to what we've been doing for the majority of these Pokemon so far, but this thing is crazy. I haven't seen this, but I heard when you're playing this on ladder, you're not able to tell what type it is, which is absolutely absurd. So let's try to unpack this a little bit. So Arceus, as you can see here, can be every type in the game. So if you want like Arceus Dragon, for example, what you need to do is you need to run the Dragon Plate. Or is it Draco Plate? Yeah, Draco Plate. And then you have this move called Judgment, and your base 120 across the board. So this is better stats, much better stats than what we've been seeing from the base 100s. And this works for every type. So you have 100% accurate, 100 base power stab move, every single type you are, no matter what. This applies for like if you want to be Arceus Bug, if you want to be Arceus Steel, you could also do this. This might, I don't know what the technical consideration for this is if it gets every move in the game, but I think it does outside of a few moves. Like, I don't think it gets Transform. Yeah, and it doesn't get Dark Void, but it gets wider move set than Mew. Speaking of which, this kind of plate thing isn't even the most threatening Arceus form. I think what you really want to do is just be the normal one. Run Swords Dance. Terra Normal, Extreme Speed. You could be like Life Orb. And if you didn't want to do this, I think this is better, but you could also just say, you know what? I'm going to be Choice Band. I'm still going to be Terra Normal. You could also be like Terra Ghost to avoid Fake Out maybe, but some combination of this really oppressive priority attacker. Also on both these sets, this move that it gets for some reason is going to be a thing. So if you run this like on super hyper offensive teams, you have to be wary of it just getting 2 quick knockouts really fast, you being down to your last 2 Pokemon, this clicking Parashong, and then just losing by force. There's also this thing where so many times I've built a team and been like 5 Pokemon in and be like, oh, this team, this archetype would actually be so good if I just had a good Steel type Pokemon, or if I just had a good Ground type Pokemon. Well, if you get in that slot, problem solved, because let's say I want a good Steel type Pokemon, I just run Arceus Steel, and I get Judgment, and Protect, and I'm just a good Steel type. Like, no worries. I don't know what the plate is called, but Iron Plate. And then I could have any sort of coverage move that I wanted to have. I could also just run Parashong plus coverage move. So this thing is absolutely crazy. There's not a whole lot of point in discussing it. It's S tier. The versatility, the stats, the move pool set it apart from every other Pokemon in the game, actually. And you're going to have, well, it's hard to have answers. I was gonna say you're gonna want to have answers for it, but the diversity makes you almost impossible to have answers for it in closed team sheet at least. So S tier undoubtedly. Good luck, have fun playing against it. Next we have Keldeo. Okay, so slightly faster, slightly worse special attacking version of Urshifu. No matter what you do, you're never going to be able to get consistent use out of Justified. You don't have any move that goes through Protect like Urshifu does, but you have the same typing as Urshifu Rapid Strike. Water, so you're going to have to be, I don't think you get Scald. Yeah, so you're going to have to be relying on Hydro Pump, which I actually didn't know this, so this makes this significantly worse. I think you do get like Secret Sword, which is cool, and it's a signature move, I believe. And you get like Vacuum Wave, which is stab priority, but the difference is that Urshifu also gets stab priority. So it's going to have a tough time competing for a restricted slot. I guess you're faster. The stats aren't bad on this, but it's just, again, the conundrum of competing for a restricted slot versus other Pokemon that take non-restricted slots that do the job just as well. Maybe there is a really niche case somewhere along the line for you want a slightly faster special attacking version of Urshifu Rapid Strike. You don't have 2 restricteds slotted in, and you can afford this. But as far as ranking it is going to go, I think this is like the Deoxys attack category where like maybe you speed tie with Calyrex Shadow Rider and win. I'll think because it's not pure chance, I'll put it top of D tier, slightly above Deoxys attack. But I don't think the niche is clearly defined enough to compete with the C tiers, and certainly not with Arceus, which we just talked about. So next we'll be unpacking Meloetta, which there's a little bit to unpack to understand this Pokemon. Stats aren't terrible. They're just, I mean, not that good. But the main thing to think about when this Pokemon's at play is it has 2 forms, which, how do I get to the second one? Yes. So the Pirouette form, I think, is actually much better because normal fighting type is more unique than normal psychic. Like if you're using this, it's just a worse version of Indeedee male even, because you're offensive. This, on the other hand, has good attack. You could run like close combat. I think this is better. The problem is if you could run this straight, you might have a case, but you can't. You have to run Relic Song, and you have to run this and then use Relic Song to transform into this, which takes a whole turn, which is just not worth it. So you could still run Relic Song, and you do have Serene Grace, so the chance to put something to sleep is like 20%, but it's still, if you want to win games consistently, it's not good enough. The ability is worse than like just Psychic Surge from Indeedee Male, which I already talked about. You're not fast at all. 90 is way too slow in today's metagame. Do you get Trick Room? You do. So you're probably going to try something like this. But also, how do you EV this Pokemon? Because if you want to be a physical attacker and transform, then you're not investing in special attack, and you need to launch a special attacking move to transform. So it just gets really awkward. I think this is like a content Pokemon where if you had a really perfect setup, nice game with Meloetta, it would be really cool, really hype, and I would be so pumped to watch it. But what I just outlined is kind of, it's what sets this Pokemon apart, right? It's its niche. And when the niche isn't good, you might just, if we look at this, I think you just end up in, I think I would honestly rather use Shaman, like this form, because this is just so hard to make work. And the typing's good, but like, I think I could, if like you challenge me to play 10 games with either Meloetta or Shaman, and you ask me what I think I would have a better record in, I think I would have a better record with Shaman. I will say that. So that might be a hot take, because I know people like Meloetta, but that's what I think. Pirouette form's down here, because technically you don't start with it, but I mean, like if I ranked this, for example, I think would be better, but the trouble you have to go through to transform and all that is not going to be worth it, as I said. Deancey is next, and I think Deancey is pretty good. There are some issues, the biggest one being the typing, so you're going to need a defensive Terra type. You could be fighting and we'll talk about this in a second. This isn't probably objectively the best defensive type, but I think it might work considering stuff like these are going to want to be Trick Room, Body Press, Diamond Storm, and I think maybe Moonblast / Protect. You're slow, good stats too, very good defensive stats. So this is just, I think, like a standard Pokemon that fits in somewhere on a Trick Room team. And I think you'll probably win some games. I don't think it's great, but I think it is a Pokemon with a good base stat total and stats in the right area that you can make some use of. I think the thing I dislike the most is I think you'll probably be tearing this every game to get around your Abysmal typing. Fairy type is great, but this Rock typing just adds so much weakness to it and really, really holds it back. My ranking on this would change significantly, and this would be a lot better, I think, if it was pure Fairy type, because I don't even care that much for Diamond Storm anyway. It's a good move. But like I would rather give up Stab Diamond Storm and give up my Rock typing than have Stab Diamond Storm, if that makes sense. So where do we rank this is the issue. I think this is pretty linear Pokemon too. That was a pretty short spiel, but I don't think there's a whole lot of other ways to use this Pokemon. So even though it's linear though, I still think it's okay, right? It's gonna work with the right supporting cast. So in terms of ranking it, I'm just thinking, because this is actually kind of close. I'm going to be generous here and give this B tier. It's very, very close to going just to the top of C tier. But what makes me put this in B tier is I would feel so different than if you made me use Deoxys Speed, which I would feel like not even mid about. But if you're like, you have to use Diancie, I'd be like, oh, okay. We could have a good stream and have some fun and win some games, where I wouldn't be as confident in that same feeling with Deoxys Speed. So I think B tier is fair. I think it gets its own tier for now. I don't think it's S or A because of the issues we talked about, but I feel comfortable putting it here. All right, gonna talk about Hoopa next. And I'm going to just talk about Hoopa Unbound. You could use this little guy, but and we could like talk about that and stuff, but just don't. Just do me a favor and don't, and use Hoopa Unbound. You're not taking up an item slot, you have the same ability. If either of those were not the case, I'd maybe talk about it. But yeah, if you're gonna use Hoopa Unbound. And as for Hoopa Unbound, I actually think it's a pretty interesting Pokemon. I think it's very chaotic. I have mixed feelings about where to rank it. Magician is, if you choose to use it, is like a crazy ability. So I've tested with all these Pokemon because I wanted to give educated opinions. And sometimes Magician comes in to bite you in the butt because you want to protect, but you stole an Assault Vest. And then you're like, oh, I can't protect, and you lose the game. So, okay. So here's the thing. I made a really cool Hoopa Unbound team that I want to show on stream. So I have a set for this that I don't want to share. But I think the set is pretty good. So I'm going to keep it secret, but I am factoring that in when I rank this. The other way that I think you can use this, just to give an example, is you can just make this an offensive item. You can make it min speed. You can go boosting nature. You can pair it next to an DD female, and you can have a very simple game plan of blowing stuff up, right? That's what you can do. And similar to what I've been saying, this will win you some games. This 170 special attack will knock out Pokemon. You're going to want to pair it with like a fighting type to get around the dark types. But if you do this and you follow ABC type of VGC strategy, you will win some games, and there will be some teams that won't be able to stand up to this raw power. Now, there's a better, more creative set, in my opinion, that, full transparency, I am keeping secret because I want to showcase it. But I'm factoring that in when I rank it. So where do we put this Pokemon? We put it B tier for sure. I actually think Diancie might be a little more consistent. So I'm going to put Hoopa below Diancie, but this is another B tier Pokemon in my opinion. It's not without flaws. There are some issues, but it's got enough going for it where it can go up here. And I think it's really interesting as a Pokemon and possibly the most fun. So yeah, Volcanion is next, and Volcanion is a good Pokemon. Now we have great stats actually, unique typing, and a good ability, which is why I say this is a great Pokemon. I have a Volcanion team, so I have an idea of how to use this. But I think something to note about this Pokemon is I believe there are a lot of ways you could use this, and I think it has a lot of untapped potential. Why I say that is I bet there are archetypes out there that make Volcanion work that I haven't even considered. And I think the archetypes would probably end up being good if you found good fits. So even though this is untested, I am very high on this Pokemon. I just think it has so much going for it. And it kind of reminds me of Calyrex Ice Rider at the beginning of formats where people aren't quite sure what the best way to play it is, but once they figure it out, it's super strong. I get the same vibes here. I'm wavering a bit because it's just untested and my confidence level isn't as surefire as I would like it to be. But when we rank it, I mean, if we just look at these moves as well, I should talk about the move pool. This is 110 base power, 95% accurate Scalds. That should be all you need to know. I mean, it gets the normal like flamethrower for stab as well. Also has great coverage. I think it gets earth power and sludge bomb. So this is what I mean. You can do so much stuff. I actually think like Terra Fairy, Terra Blast is something to consider if you're building around this. So yeah, lots and lots that you can do with this Pokemon. I think you could be so many different items as well. Really, really interesting. I should say that as well. This is an interesting Pokemon when you look at the possibilities. I'm going to go hot take here. Just because I think we don't know what the best archetype is, but just because we don't know doesn't mean it doesn't deserve us grading it on its potential. I think this is A tier. This is definitely not like Arceus material, but, and I think this is a little bit of my optimism showing through. I think objectively, you could probably go anywhere in here and it would be fair as well. But I really believe in this Pokemon. I think it could be really strong. So I'm going to put it in A tier. So unlike Volcanion, we have a very good idea of how to use Magearna. It has this crazy ability called Soul Heart, which whenever a Pokemon faints, it gets a special attack boost. And it being a special attacker with a 130 base special attack, this makes it really good. Great stab moves, and I think it's Fleur Cannon, and you just run Flash Cannon. This is pretty simple. The go-to strategy is to run this next to like a final Gambit Pokemon. I think in testing, I ran into Annihilate the most because you can't fake that out. I like Covert Cloak here, so you go Annihilate plus Magearna, and neither slot can be faked out. You final Gambit something, 2 Pokemon faint, you go to +2 special attack, which I guess I can't do on the showdown thing, but that's okay. You run Trick Room, you run Protect. Like I said, it's not overly complicated. You can do partners like Torkoal, other Trick Room Pokemon work as well. And then I've seen some sets where they try to run like room, I don't want to say tail room teams, but they go Shift Gear. So basically, like Shift Gear Protect, for example. So basically on the last turn of Trick Room, when you're anticipating double Protect, you go Shift Gear, and then you have Speed Control once again. So I think this is like tapped. Like I think people have recognized the potential, know how to use it, and know what to expect. And I think good players will have counters for it. It's still strong. It's still going to be something that every good player is going to account for in team building, and they could still lose. Your prep needs to be really solid against it, etc., etc. But in terms of when we talk about ranking it, I think it's got to go A tier. It's very different than Volcanion, where it's, I think its potential is met. I think people know what to do with it, but I think it's on the same caliber of Pokemon. It's way more consistent than Diancie and Hoopa. I think I'm trying to be as accurate in this tier list as possible and objective. I think ultimately that Volcanion is the better Pokemon. For the record, I think that this is a better Pokemon to use if you want to win games, win grassroots tournaments, whatever. But I think we know what the best archetypes for Magearna are right now, and we can't say that for Volcanion. So because of that, I will put it just ahead of Volcanion in the A tier. Next up, we have Zarude. And the biggest issue with Zarude is, well, there are a few. Not a good ability, and in a lot of competition with Rillaboom. When you look at this thing side by side to Rillaboom, its stats are very similar, if not worse. So when you're using it, you want to look at what the differences are, which mainly is this dark typing. Dark typing could be good in this format because you resist Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is always a good thing. You get stab knockoff, so that's a thing. You get a lot of the same moves as Rillaboom actually. So you're gonna run it pretty similarly, and it's just, does this fit your team or not? I think there are ways you can find success with it. Full transparency, I have a Zarude team, and I've actually done pretty well with it. So I need to consider that when ranking it, but I don't think there are that many teams that this will fit into. So we need to consider that when ranking it, and I think that's gonna land us. It's definitely not like DNC Hoopa material. I think it is better than everything in C tier. If there was like a B- or C+, I'd be tempted to go there. More like C+ than B-. But with this tier list, we'll go top of C tier. I think that's fair. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. Last on the list is Pecharunt. So Pecharunt is a Pokemon that when I first looked at it and just did an estimation, I thought it was gonna be pretty bad. But I actually think there are ways to use this. So something like this, and using this almost as like a suicide lead. I don't know if you run, no, you probably don't run Sash. I think even like a berry could be fine. And you max out Spadef, right? So you go something like this, max HP, max Spadef, because you're already so bulky on the physical side that you really just want to focus on your Spadef. And then this is really good against the Fire, Water, Grass core. You are weak to Calyrex Shadow Rider, so you probably go dark typing, I think is fair. And you probably, when you're using this, you probably almost always lead it and just click Poison Gas and then try to clean up in the end game. I think using Pokemon that are bulky and hard to knock out paired with this is the way to go. And in testing, I actually thought it was way stronger than I thought it was going to be. So in terms of what that equates to when ranking it, I don't think it's Volcanion or Magearna material, but I also don't think it's in here. So it's definitely in B tier. And I think it's more consistent than Hoopa and less consistent than Diancie. So I'm going to put it right in the middle there. But it's a good Pokemon. You could have some fun with it and definitely win some games. And that is the complete tier list for Pokemon Regulation J. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I should put a caveat that some of these Pokemon might be hard to use legally because they might be hard to obtain in game. I'm actually even worried about that myself. Like, I think I can get some of them because I have friends and whatnot. But that's a lot of where I think the controversy in the format comes from. But I am excited about it. I think trying out new interesting formats is cool. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list, and hopefully you get some Regulation J games in yourself.